Welcome to another episode of Sports Hub Central. I am your host, Chad M.
And I'm Emily Nerland, and we are bringing you all the top stories from sports today, starting with a little bit of Carmelo Anthony on Linsanity, following up with Sandusky scandals, and the NHL lockout. Is it looming? So first off, Carmelo Anthony steps out saying that the offer for Jeremy Lin is ridiculous. What is your take? Is it a ridiculous contract, and why would it be ridiculous?
Well, when I think of ridiculous with everything that's going on in regards to this story here, he is ridiculous because he should not be coming out on public record and criticizing a contract of a potential fellow teammate or co-employee in the same league as him. It's just something that doesn't happen in today's modern society of sports. These guys make millions of dollars.
But it does happen all the time in sports today. It does happen all the time, and a lot of the best players do it. And sometimes it gets people to step up, and maybe this is Melo trying to defend. Everyone says he can't win a championship. Well, maybe he can win a championship if Lin is off his team. Maybe they played fine. They played well when he was out. And maybe it's a bit of sour grapes. But don't you think that Melo is doing what's in his best interest all the time? So him calling out Lin,
that's the key word right there, his. It shouldn't be about
winning
his
a
best
championship
interest.
is in his best interest.
No,
Absolutely.
I think it's a selfish thing here because he is more concerned about what's going to make him be the best on the court.
He's not worried about how many jerseys Lin is selling. He's worried about getting championships. And point blank, he doesn't think that he's worth that much money that could go to someone else that could help him win a championship. Period.
Okay, well, the bottom line is this. If he really feels that way, then you deal with this behind closed doors to management, not in front of making a big scene to the public.
Well, I never said he was classy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, don't they have another classy player they just got on the Knicks?
Yeah, I think he's still detained. So, moving from kid to Sandusky. The Sandusky scandal goes a little bit deeper today. They find out that it's been happening since the 70s, allegations of child sex abuse, and Paterno's family is launching their own investigation, which I think is absolutely asinine. If it's a little bit too little, too late. Nothing they could find at this point could change what people think and what needs to happen, which is everything Paterno needs to be removed from Penn State for them to move on.
Yeah, and I mean, delusional is just an understatement of a word to describe these family members of the Paterno family here because, you know, I'm sure everything did go back to the 70s. It's not a shock at this point, and I think the biggest sign that indicated all this happened was back in 1998 when the original allegations came out. If you guys go back in time and remember what was being reported on, Sandusky was built up to be the next coach of Penn State when Paterno was going to retire. Well, all of a sudden, the guy in his early 50s just retires in 1999. Not a coincidence that it happened a year after the first allegations came out. He was quietly shooed out and told him that you're not going to be coaching this team.
But the only reason it was because Paterno was trying to defend his legacy there. It had nothing to do with the kids, had nothing to do with Sandusky and the god he was. Because if you look at that whole school and everybody that's within it, who was on top? Who was the god at that school? So who is to blame?
Yes, he definitely has to.
There's nothing that can find.
It was his selfishness, and at the end of the day here, it doesn't matter how much time and money is put into another investigation launched here by the Paterno family. It's not going to change society's opinion. So why not use your brains a little bit and take the money that you'd apply to that and actually do something good with it. Donate it to a good cause. Give it back to the families that were hurt by it, or give it to a research fund or something that can try to prevent atrocities like this from happening in the future.
Something that might not be prevented coming up in the near future, September. There might not be hockey. CBA, they've come out. The league has given their terms, and they seem really far apart. This would be the third time Bettman's been in this situation. Is he the worst commissioner of all time?
Well, from a fan's perspective, I would definitely have to say yes. I mean, any time that you're involved with this many lockouts, there's clearly something that isn't getting done consistently here to have the players and the owners on the same page. And unfortunately, from the league's perspective, they don't make enough money that either side would be, feeling terrible if the season ever went on. Like the NFL, there's just too much money at stake for both the owners and the players. But because they struggle in so many American franchises, and there's so many teams that lose money on a yearly basis, the owners don't really care. They'll miss a whole year because a lot of them would rather.
I think they care. I think that's a little callous to say that the owners don't care. The owners care about who's going to be there because all their money comes from people coming in this and sitting in their seats. And who fills those seats is fans. So owners have to care as businessmen. They are not people who are just bums off the street. They're businessmen, so they know what's happening.
Right,
so
and
they know what gets their business.
And the formula that's being used, the model that's being used for the last 7 years has produced more losses than profits. It would make more sense to wait a whole year to get what they want and break even than continue to bleed money.
At what cost, though? At what cost? Because hockey isn't the biggest sport in the world, and they don't have many more things.
They do lose a lot of fans.
If they start to ostracize more and more fans, at what point is it going to be a diminishing returns on waiting?
Yeah, no, and that's the big debate that you can't really put a number on. But there are some numbers that make absolutely no sense, which I think are the core problems with this original proposal. Decreasing the players' revenue from 57 to 46%. How do you expect players to agree to an 11% decrease right off the bat? I understand if you want to level the playing field a little bit, but it's got to happen gradually over time. And then they want to talk about having maximum contracts, 5 years, after all these 13-year deals that have happened for the last number of years. Oh, are they out of their minds? You don't just ask players to go from 10,
precedent.
11, 12, 13 years of comfort zones where half the league already has these contracts to something as small as 5 years. Just because the owners agreed to something they didn't like before doesn't mean they can get it all back in one deal here. There's got to be more compromise, and they're in left field with this proposal.
Yeah, so we start with Carmelo Anthony being childish, and we end with the owners being childish.
And that's a wrap for this week's episode of Sports Hub Central.